Listen, I need you to understand something before I tell you this story. I'm not the villain here. I know how it looks. I know what people said. But sometimes when you're building an empire, you have to make hard choices. Sometimes you have to leave people behind. That's just business. That's just life. My name is Trump Harrison. I'm 40 years old, and 3 months ago, I finalized what I thought was the smartest divorce in history. I took everything. Before we dive in, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button right now because this story is going to take you on a journey you won't forget. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and let me know if you've ever been go through this situation. Trust me, by the end of this, you'll understand why that question matters. The house, the business, the cars, everything. My wife Sarah just gave up, didn't fight, didn't argue, just signed the papers and walked away with 50 grand and our son. Thought I'd won, I had no idea. I just signed my own death warrant, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this really started. Because you need to understand how a man everyone thought was a genius actually walked straight into the most elaborate trap of his life. And the woman who said it, she spent 3 years watching me dig my own grave, and she never said a word. I met Sarah Chen when I was 30. She was working as a legal assistant at Henderson and Price, this mid-tier law firm downtown. I was there for a client meeting about my first real estate deal. She brought coffee. That sounds terrible, right? Like some cliche movie scene. But I remember thinking she had this efficiency about her. Everything she did was precise, organized, deliberate. I was ambitious. I'd been flipping houses for 2 years, barely making enough to cover rent, but I had vision. I could see potential in properties other people walked past. I could imagine luxury condos and abandoned warehouses, family homes and forgotten neighborhoods. I just needed capital, needed connections, needed someone who understood numbers and contracts and could keep track of the 1,000 moving pieces that make up a real estate empire. Sarah was 25, quiet, competent, and when I told her about my plans over coffee 3 days later, she didn't laugh. She asked to see my spreadsheets. We got married 6 months later. Fast, I know. But when you find someone who gets your vision, someone who can execute while you strategize, you don't wait around. Marcus came along a year after that. My son, my legacy. For the first few years, it was good. Better than good. Sarah quit the law firm and came to work with me full-time. She managed everything I didn't want to deal with. The books, the clients, the contractors, the endless paperwork that bogs down every business. I was the face. She was the engine. By the time I was 35, Harrison Properties was generating 7 figures annually. We had the house, the cars, the country club membership. I was speaking at real estate conferences, getting awards, making deals that other developers could only dream about. People kept asking me the secret to my success. I never mentioned Sarah. I don't know why. It's not that I didn't appreciate what she did. It's just, when you're building something, you become the story. You become the brand. Trump Harrison, self-made real estate mogul. Sounds better than Trump Harrison and his wife, who does all the actual work. That's just marketing. That's just how the world works. But somewhere around year 10, things started shifting. Sarah started asking questions about decisions I'd already made, started suggesting we slow down, consolidate, be more conservative. She didn't understand that fortune favors the bold. You don't build an empire by playing it safe. I started making moves without telling her. Bigger deals, riskier investments, opportunities she would have questioned, so I just didn't ask. There was this cryptocurrency fund. Bitcoin, Ethereum, all the hot coins. My buddy Jake had made a killing. Turned 50 grand into $500,000 in 18 months. This was back when crypto was exploding. When everyone who got in early was getting rich. I invested $180,000. Company money, but it was my company, right? My vision. My risk to take, it crashed. All of it. Gone in 3 months. I didn't tell Sarah. Then there was the gambling. Not a problem, just stress relief. Poker nights with investors. Casino trips with clients. It's called networking. You build relationships. You show you're one of them. Sure, I was down 75 grand over 2 years. But that's not gambling losses. That's business expenses. I didn't tell Sarah about that either. And Michelle. I should probably mention Michelle. She was 29. Worked in property management at one of my developments. Smart, ambitious, appreciated my vision in ways Sarah had stopped doing. We started having coffee, then drinks. Then I rented an apartment in the new downtown complex I was developing. Just a place to unwind, to think, to get away from the pressure. Michelle understood. She didn't ask about spreadsheets or question my decisions. She just got me. 60,000 in rent and furnishings over 2 years. Money well spent for my peace of mind. Sarah never knew. She was too busy with Marcus. Too focused on the day-to-day operations. Too deep in the books to see the bigger picture I was painting. By year 14, I felt suffocated. The house that once felt like a palace felt like a prison. Sarah, who once understood my vision, now just seemed to drain my energy. Every conversation was about Marcus's school, or dinner plans, or some contractor dispute. She'd stopped seeing me as the man building an empire. She only saw me as the guy who forgot to pick up milk. I wanted more. Deserved more. That's when I met Brittany. She was 33, worked as a marketing coordinator at one of my properties. Blonde, vibrant, full of energy and enthusiasm. She looked at me the way Sarah used to look at me 10 years ago. Like I was going places. Like I was special. We started seeing each other. Nothing serious at first, just connection. Someone who understood that a man building an empire needs more than spreadsheets and parent-teacher conferences. He needs inspiration. He needs appreciation. 6 months in, I made my decision. I wanted a divorce. I went to Harold Whitfield, the best divorce attorney money could buy. Told him my situation, 15-year marriage. 1 kid, substantial assets. A wife who contributed but didn't really build anything. I mean, she managed the books, sure, but I was the visionary. I was the one who took the risks, made the deals, built the brand. Harold laid out the strategy. In our state, we could argue that the business was primarily my creation and my expertise. Sarah had been support staff, essentially. Well-compensated support staff through our lifestyle, but still, with the right approach, I could keep the majority of assets. What about your wife? Harold asked. Will she fight? I thought about Sarah. Quiet. Organized, non-confrontational. Sarah, the woman who'd spent 15 years supporting my vision without complaint. She won't fight, I said confidently. She's not a fighter. Looking back, that might have been the stupidest thing I ever said. Told Sarah on a Tuesday evening. She was making dinner, my favorite actually, which made it somehow easier and harder at the same time. I sat her down at the kitchen table. The same table where we'd made plans and celebrated victories and lived our life. Together, I want a divorce, I said. I want the house, the cars, the business, everything. You can keep Marcus. I said it like it was a business. Proposal, clean, simple, efficient. Sarah just stared at me. Her face went completely blank, like all the emotion had been sucked out of the room. She didn't cry, didn't yell, didn't throw anything. She just sat there. Okay, she finally said. Just that. Okay, I'd expected tears. Maybe anger. Definitely some kind of emotional outburst. This calm acceptance was somehow worse. It made me feel like the bad guy, which I wasn't. I was just being honest about what I needed. I've already spoken to a lawyer. I continued. Harold Whitfield. He'll handle everything fairly. I'm not trying to hurt you, Sarah. I need something different. She nodded slowly. Can I think about this? Of course. Take your time. She took exactly 1 day. The next evening, she told me she'd hire her own lawyer and we could work out the details. That was it. No drama, no scene. Just acceptance. I moved her to the guest room that weekend. It seemed cleaner that way, less confusing for Marcus. Within 2 weeks, I brought Brittany around. Why wait? The marriage was over. Sarah knew it. Everyone would know it soon enough. Brittany was amazing about everything. She understood that the house was mine, that Sarah was just transitioning out. She started adding her touches. New throw pillows in the living room. Different coffee in the kitchen. She even suggested we repaint. Get rid of some of Sarah's more dated choices. We painted the kitchen gray. Modern, sophisticated, clean. Sarah's sage green had always been too country, too soft. This was better. My mother was incredible through all of this. Lorraine Harrison is a force of nature, always has been. She came over the week after I announced the divorce, took one look at Sarah, and said, "Well, you tried your best." Dear. Mom understood that sometimes marriages just don't work. She helped Sarah pack, made sure she only took what was appropriate. No need for Sarah to walk away with jewelry I'd bought or furniture I'd selected. Those were investments in our lifestyle, not personal gifts. Mom packed Sarah's things in garbage bags. Practical, efficient, easy to carry. Sarah didn't complain. Through all of this, my buddy Jake kept telling me I was lucky. Most guys get destroyed in divorce court, he said over drinks at the club. You're keeping everything. She must really not want to fight. He was right. The mediation sessions were almost embarrassingly easy. Sarah showed up with her lawyer, some woman named Nina Castellano, and barely said anything. She asked for $50,000, her personal belongings, and shared custody of Marcus. That was it. Harold pulled me aside after the second mediation. "This is unusual," he said. "She helped build your business for over a decade. She's entitled to much more. I'm concerned she doesn't understand what she's giving up." "Sarah's smart," I assured him. "She knows what she's doing. She just wants this over." And honestly, I believed it. Sarah had never been ambitious for herself. She'd been content being support staff, being behind the scenes. Now she'd have her 50 grand. A fresh start and freedom from a marriage that wasn't working anymore. Win-win. The final hearing was scheduled for April 17th, 3 months after I'd first told Sarah I wanted a divorce. 3 months of surprisingly smooth sailing toward my new life. Brittany and I celebrated the night before. Champagne on the deck of the house, looking out over the city. My house, my view, my empire. "Tomorrow it's official," Brittany said, curling up against me. "Then we can really start our life together." I kissed her forehead. Everything was falling into place. The business was thriving. My new relationship was passionate and uncomplicated. Marcus was adjusting. And Sarah would be fine. She was resourceful. She'd figure it out. I had no idea that the only thing Sarah had been figuring out for the last 3 years was exactly how to destroy me. The morning of April 17th was perfect. Clear skies, mild temperature. The kind of day that feels like the universe is agreeing with your choices. I wore my best suit, my Armani. The $15,000 watch I'd bought to celebrate a major deal. I wanted to look successful because I was successful. This hearing was just a formality. The legal stamp on a life decision I'd already made. Harold met me in the courthouse lobby. "Feeling good?" he asked. "Feeling great," I told him honestly. "Let's get this done." Sarah arrived a few minutes later with Nina Castellano. I barely recognized Sarah at first. She looked smaller somehow, tired. She was wearing a simple navy dress, no jewelry, hair pulled back. She looked like someone who'd given up. Perfect. We entered. Courtroom 4B, Judge Patricia Holden presiding. I'd heard she was fair, efficient, no nonsense. Exactly what I wanted. In and out, sign the papers, start my new life. The hearing started smoothly. Harold presented our agreement. I would assume all marital assets, including the house, the business, and the vehicles. Sarah would receive $50,000 in cash settlement. Clean. Simple. Exactly. As negotiated, Judge. Holden reviewed the documents, then looked at Sarah. "Mrs. Harrison," she said carefully, "I need to confirm you understand what you're agreeing to. You're giving up claim to substantial property. Are you certain?" Sarah's voice was soft, almost defeated. "Yes, Your Honor, I understand. I just want this to be over." I felt a twinge of something, not quite guilt, maybe pity. Sarah had been a good wife for many years. It was sad to see her like this, so diminished. But this was her choice. She could have fought. She didn't. The judge studied Sarah for another moment, clearly concerned, but ultimately nodded. "Very well, let's proceed." The clerk distributed the final documents, pages and pages of legal language. I'd reviewed them all with Harold. Everything was in order. I started signing, feeling that satisfaction that comes with closing a good deal. Across from me, Sarah was signing too, slowly, methodically, like she was savoring something that should have been my first warning. I was 3/4 through the document stack when Harold suddenly went rigid beside me. I glanced over. He was staring at a page I'd already signed, his face draining of color. "Sir," he whispered urgently, "we need to talk now." I waved him off. "We're almost done. Whatever it is can wait." "Sir?" His voice had an edge I'd never heard before. "You're assuming all debt." I looked at him blankly. "What?" "The liability disclosure." He was flipping through pages frantically now. "The mortgages, the business loans, it's all here. You're assuming personal liability for everything." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" "What mortgages?" Harold's finger was shaking as he pointed to the numbers on the page. "The house has 3 mortgages. Total liability, $1.1 million. The business has liens totaling $480,000. The vehicles have outstanding lease obligations of $115,000. There are additional personal liabilities of—" "Stop," My voice came out hoarse. That's not possible. But I was already looking at the documents, really looking at them for the first time. And there they were. Every debt, every loan, every obligation I'd thought was hidden or manageable or someone else's problem, all in black and white, all attached to the assets I'd just signed for, all now legally, completely entirely mine. The numbers swam in front of my eyes. House, 1.1 million owed on property worth. $850,000. Business, $480,000 in combined debts. Vehicles, $115,000 in leases. Additional liabilities, $200,000 total debt approximately. 1.9 million total. Value of everything I'd just claimed. Maybe 1.6 million net value. Negative $300,000. Wasn't inheriting an empire. I was inheriting a financial disaster. This isn't right. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. Every eye in the courtroom turned to me. She hid this from me. This is fraud. Judge Holden's voice cut through my panic like a knife. Mr. Harrison, sit down. These numbers are fake. I insisted, hearing the desperation in my own voice. She manipulated the documents. This is Mr. Harrison. The judge's tone left no room for argument. Sit down, I sat. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding so hard. I could hear it in my ears. Judge Holden reviewed the documents in front of her with excruciating slowness. When she finally looked up, her expression was cold. Mr. Harrison, I'm looking at the liability disclosure statement attached to this agreement. These are debts associated with assets you are claiming. Assets in your name, your business, your property. She paused. Are you telling this court that you don't know your own financial situation? The courtroom was dead silent. Everyone was staring at me. Harold, the clerk, Sarah and her lawyer, my mother in the gallery, her face white with shock. I started, but I had no answer, because the truth was devastating. I didn't know. I'd been so focused on the vision, on the empire, on the growth and the deals, and the success that I'd stopped looking at the actual numbers. Sarah had managed the books. Sarah had handled the details. Sarah had known everything, and I'd known nothing. Harold cleared his throat. Your Honor, I should note that I advised my client to conduct an independent financial review prior to this hearing. He declined. I have documentation. He produced a waiver. My signature was at the bottom. I didn't remember signing it, but there it was. Black and white, proof that Harold had tried to save me from myself. Judge Holden reviewed the waiver. So Mr. Harrison was advised to verify these figures. He chose not to. He signed a waiver acknowledging that choice. She looked at me. Is that correct? I couldn't speak. Couldn't think. Couldn't do anything but stare at that signature that damned. Me? Is that your signature? Mr. Harrison? Yes, I finally whispered. Then you assumed this risk voluntarily, the judge said matter-of-factly. You had the opportunity to investigate. You chose not to. The agreement stands. No! The word burst out of me. No, this isn't fair. I want to withdraw the agreement. I didn't understand what I was signing. Judge Holden shook her head slowly. Mr. Harrison, you signed documents before this court stating you understood and agreed to all terms. You were represented by competent counsel. You declined additional review. Your wife did not hide anything. These are your debts, your mortgages, your obligations. She paused, and in that pause, I felt my entire world collapsing. The agreement is final. The gavel came down. I sat frozen in my chair. Around me, people were gathering papers, standing, preparing to leave. The hearing was over. My marriage was over. My life as I knew it was over. I turned to look at Sarah. She was standing calmly, putting documents into her bag. She looked up and met my eyes. And for the first time in 3 months, I saw her clearly. She wasn't defeated, wasn't broken, wasn't the diminished, tired woman I'd thought I was rescuing myself from. She was satisfied. You knew, I said, my voice cracking. You knew about all of this. Sarah's expression didn't change. I was your bookkeeper for 11 years. Trump, I knew about everything. The simple truth of that statement hit me like a physical blow. Of course she knew. Sarah had managed every account, every transaction, every financial detail of my business and my life. She'd known about the crypto losses, the gambling, the secret apartment, the mortgages I'd taken out without telling her. Every stupid, reckless, arrogant decision I'd made. She'd known everything, and she'd waited. How long? I asked. How long have you known? 3 years. 3 years. While I was planning my exit, building my new relationship, imagining my new life. Sarah had been sitting on this information, watching me dig the hole deeper, waiting for the moment when I would hand her the shovel and ask her to bury me with it. "You can't do this," I said desperately. "We can figure something out." "We can—" "You asked for everything except Marcus," Sarah said quietly. "I gave you exactly what you asked for." She walked past me toward the door. Didn't look back. Didn't hesitate. Just left. I turned to Harold, grasping for anything. There has to be something we can do. An appeal. A motion. Something. Harold was packing his briefcase. His movements methodical. "You signed a waiver declining financial review. You assumed all assets knowing you had the right to investigate. And choosing not to. You're represented by counsel. The judge's ruling is sound." He paused. "I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison. This is over. But the debt," I said. "I can't pay this. I'll lose everything." "Yes," Harold said simply. "You will." I stumbled out of the courtroom in a daze. In the hallway, Brittany was waiting, looking concerned. She'd been asking about the hearing all morning. Excited about our future, our new beginning. "How did it go?" she asked brightly. I couldn't speak. Couldn't find the words to explain what had just happened. Couldn't tell her that the successful businessman she thought she was getting was actually a fraud buried under $2 million in debt, but she saw something in my face. "Trump, what's wrong?" "The house," I finally managed. "The business. It's all, there's debt, lots of debt." "How much debt?" Her voice had changed. "Gotten careful. About $2 million. Brittany stared at me. I watched her face cycle through emotions, confusion, disbelief, realization, horror. I watched the moment she understood that the lifestyle she'd been enjoying, the future she'd been imagining, it was all built on borrowed money and bad decisions. "I have to go," she said. "Brittany." Wait, but she was already walking away. Heels clicking on the marble floor, moving fast, not looking back. By the time I reached the courthouse doors, she was gone. I stood on the courthouse steps in the April sunshine. Perfect weather for the worst day of my life. Behind me, my lawyer was probably calculating his final bill. My mother was probably trying to process how her successful son had just lost everything. My son Marcus was at school, having no idea his father had just imploded, and somewhere ahead of me, Sarah was starting a new life. Smaller, simpler, but completely entirely hers, while I had everything I'd asked for. The collapse happened faster than you'd think. Brittany moved out that night. I came home to find half her things already gone, the rest piled by the door. There was a note on the kitchen counter, on the gray granite, I'd installed to replace Sarah's choices. "This isn't what I signed up for. I'm sorry." But she wasn't sorry. She was smart. She'd seen the writing on the wall and gotten out before she got buried, too. I couldn't even blame her. I'd have done the same thing. The first mortgage payment was due in 2 weeks. $6,800. I had it, barely. But it was money I'd earmarked for a business deal. The second mortgage was $2,400. The third was another $2,100. Total monthly house payment, $1,100 on a house worth less than what I owed. The business had vendor payments coming due. Contractors I owed money to. Property taxes on holdings that were suddenly my sole responsibility. The vehicles had lease payments totaling $2,800 monthly. I started running the numbers, really looking at them for the first time in years. And I realized Sarah had been right to worry, right to question, right to suggest we slow down. Every decision I'd made in the last 5 years had been building this house of cards. And now, the slightest breeze would collapse the whole thing. That breeze came in the form of my bank. The business line of credit was maxed out at $200,000. I'd been using it like a checking account, paying it down and pulling it back up, treating it like infinite money. But the bank wanted a payment. A real payment. Principal reduction of $25,000, plus interest. I didn't have it. Tried to sell one of the properties in my portfolio, a small commercial building that should have been worth $400,000, but when the appraiser came back, accounting for the liens against it and the deferred maintenance I'd been ignoring, it was worth maybe $280,000, and I owed $350,000 or underwater, like everything else. I called an emergency meeting with my accountant, David Chen, ironically Sarah's cousin. He'd been doing my books since year 3, always professional, always discreet. Now he sat across from me and laid out the numbers with brutal honesty. "You're insolvent," David said flatly. "Your liabilities exceed your assets by approximately $300,000. And that's before we factor in the ongoing losses in the business and the cash flow crisis you're facing. What are my options? I asked. Bankruptcy. Chapter 11. If you want to try to reorganize and keep the business. Chapter 7. If you want to liquidate everything and start over. How long do I have? To decide. Months. To avoid missing payments and having creditors start calling. He checked his notes. Weeks. I started missing payments after 3 weeks. The third mortgage first, then vendor payments, then the credit line. Each missed payment triggered phone calls. Polite at first, then insistent, then threatening. My mother called daily. How did this happen? She kept asking. How did we not know? Sarah knew, I told her. Sarah managed the books. She knew everything. Then why didn't she tell us? Mom's voice was confused, hurt. The perfect image of her successful son was shattering, and she couldn't understand how it had happened. She did tell me, I admitted. She just did it in court. The business started falling apart next. 2 of my best contractors filed liens when I couldn't pay them. 3 clients pulled their projects, spooked by rumors about financial trouble. My office manager quit without notice, citing ethical concerns about the company's practices. One by one, the pieces of my empire crumbled. I put the house on the market after 2 months, listed it for $925,000, hoping to cover at least most of what I owed. No offers. Reduced it to $875,000. One lowball offer of $750,000 that I couldn't accept because it wouldn't even cover the debt the bank started foreclosure proceedings. After 3 months, I met with Harold Whitfield, one last time to discuss bankruptcy. He laid out my options with the same professional detachment he'd had during the divorce. Chapter 11 will let you try to restructure, but it's expensive and time-consuming. Chapter 7 is faster, but you'll lose everything. The house, the business, all of it. What about the vehicles? I asked. Those are leased. The leasing company will repossess them when you default. And then what? What do I have left? Harold was quiet for a moment. Your son. And whatever you can rebuild. Bankruptcy. The word I'd associated with failure my entire career. The thing that happened to bad businessmen, poor planners, people without vision. Never me, never Trump Harrison, real estate mogul. But here I was, I filed. Chapter 7 in June. 3 months after the divorce was finalized. The house went to auction. The business was dissolved. The vehicles were repossessed. Everything I'd spent 15 years building, gone in 90 days. My mother stopped calling. I think the reality of what had happened was too much for her. Her successful son, the one she'd bragged about at her book club, was bankrupt. Living in a 1-bedroom apartment, driving a 10-year-old Honda. I'd bought cash from a used lot. The fall from grace was spectacular. People I'd done business with for years suddenly didn't return my calls. Invitations to industry events dried up. My golf club membership was quietly canceled when I couldn't pay the fees. I was persona non grata, a cautionary tale. The guy who had it all and lost it. But the worst part, the absolute worst part, wasn't the money, or the house or the business or even the public humiliation. It was Marcus. Son had watched everything. The divorce, the collapse, the bankruptcy. He'd watched Brittany leave. Watched his grandmother stop calling. Watched his father go from successful businessman to broke and desperate in 3 months, and he'd watched his mother the whole time. Sarah never gloated, never explained. She just kept living her life, steady and calm and present. She moved into a small apartment and created a home. She enrolled in design courses and started building a new career. She showed up for Marcus every single day, reliable and supportive in there. Meanwhile, I was falling apart. Marcus started spending more time at Sarah's place. Not because the court ordered it, but because he chose to. He'd come to my apartment for his assigned weekends and spend most of the time doing homework or on his phone. The easy conversation we'd once had was gone. One Saturday, about 4 months after the divorce, I asked him if he wanted to grab pizza. Our old tradition. I'm not really hungry, he said, not looking up from his phone. Come on, buddy. When's the last time we had our pizza night? He finally looked at me. Dad, did you know about the debt? The question hit me like a punch. What? The debt, the mortgages, all of it. Did you know? I could have lied. Should have, maybe. But I was so tired of the pretense. No, I didn't know it was that bad. But Mom knew. Yeah, Mom knew. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. She tried to tell you, didn't she? Over the years. She tried to get you to slow down. To be more careful, I thought back. The conversations I'd dismissed. The concerns I'd waved away. The spreadsheets I'd refused to look at because I was too busy with the vision. The empire, the next big deal. Yeah, I admitted. She tried. And you didn't listen. No, I didn't listen. Marcus nodded slowly. Mom's starting her own business. Interior design. She got her first paying client last week. That's great. And I meant it, sort of. It was great for Sarah. It was also a reminder that while I was drowning, she was building something new. She told me something yesterday. Marcus continued. She said that the hardest thing she ever did was watch you destroy what you'd built. She said she wanted to save you from yourself, but she knew you wouldn't listen. So she saved herself and me instead. I felt something crack inside my chest. Your mom's a smart woman. Yeah, Marcus said quietly. She is. 6 months after the divorce, I ran into Sarah at the grocery store. I almost didn't recognize her at first. She looked different. Not the tired, defeated woman from the courthouse. Not the quiet, diminished wife I'd dismissed. She looked confident, put together. Happy. Trump, she said when she saw me. No hostility in her voice. Just neutral recognition. Sarah. I didn't know what to say. Sorry, how dare you? Thank you for destroying me. She looked at the basket I was carrying. Generic brands. Basic staples. The shopping of a man on a tight budget. Then she looked at her own cart. Not fancy, but comfortable. The shopping of someone who wasn't struggling. How are you? She asked. I wanted to say fine. Wanted to maintain some dignity. But what was the point? I'm bankrupt. Living in a one-bedroom. Trying to figure out what to do next. She nodded. I heard. I'm sorry it worked out this way. Are you? The words came out harder than I meant them to. You planned this. For 3 years. No, Sarah said calmly. I planned to protect myself and Marcus. You planned this. Every risky investment, every hidden debt, every decision you made without telling me. You built this disaster yourself. Trump, I just made sure I wasn't buried in it. You could have warned me. I tried. For years. You didn't listen. She paused. You didn't want a partner. You wanted an employee. And employees don't get to question the boss. The truth of that hit me hard. She was right. I'd treated Sarah like staff. Trusted her to execute my vision, but dismissed her concerns. Taken her labor for granted while taking all the credit. I'd built an empire on her back and never once said thank you. I've been talking to a therapist, I said. Don't know why I shared that. Maybe because Sarah was the only person who knew the whole story. Trying to understand how I got here. That's good, Sarah said. And she seemed to mean it. She asked me when I stopped respecting you. I couldn't answer. I don't think I ever stopped respecting you. I just stopped seeing you. Sarah was quiet for a moment. That's probably the most honest thing you've said to me in 5 years. We stood there in the produce section, 2 people who'd shared 15 years of life, and now had nothing in common, except a son and a spectacular disaster. Marcus tells me you're doing design work. I said finally, yeah, it's small, just starting, but it's mine. She smiled slightly. Turns out I'm good at creating spaces where people want to live, unlike the space I created, which people wanted to leave. The irony wasn't lost on me. I should go, Sarah said. Take care of yourself, Trump. She walked away with her cart, leaving me standing there among the organic apples and conventional bananas, wondering how I'd become the villain in my own story. The bankruptcy was finalized in September, 8 months after I'd walked into that courtroom expecting to claim my empire. All assets liquidated, all debts discharged. Slate wiped clean. I had nothing. And somehow nothing felt better than everything had. I started over completely. Got a job as a project manager at a construction company. Not real estate development. Not building empires. Just regular construction work with a salary and benefits and no ownership stake in anything. It was humbling. It was also stable. I moved to a better apartment. 2 bedrooms so Marcus could have his own room when he visited. We established a new routine. Pizza on Saturdays. Homework help on Sundays. Slow, careful rebuilding of a relationship I'd nearly destroyed. One evening, about a year after the divorce, Marcus asked me a question. Dad, do you hate Mom? I thought about it carefully. No, I don't hate her. Are you angry at her? I was, for a while. I paused. But she didn't do anything wrong. She protected herself and you. That's what she was supposed to do. She told me the money is for my college, Marcus said. The trust fund. She said she saved it specifically for me. I felt a wave of emotion. I couldn't quite name. Gratitude? Regret? Relief? Your mom is smart. She always was. She said you were smart too, Marcus said quietly. She said you just forgot that building something real takes patience. You wanted the empire too fast, out of the mouths of teenage sons. She's right, I said. I wanted success more than I wanted to earn it. I wanted to look successful more than I wanted to be successful. And I hurt a lot of people getting there, including you, Marcus pointed out. Yeah, including me. 2 years after the divorce, I saw Sarah at Marcus's school event, a presentation on career paths where parents could speak about their work. Sarah spoke about interior design, about creating spaces that reflect people's true selves, about how sometimes you have to tear everything down to rebuild something better. She didn't look at me when she said it, but I felt it anyway. After the presentation, she came over. You did good work on that school edition project, she said. I saw the photos Marcus showed me. Thanks. It's honest work, the best kind, Sarah said. We stood there awkwardly for a moment. Then she said, I need to tell you something, and I want you to really hear it. I nodded. I didn't destroy you for revenge. I didn't set a trap to hurt you. I protected myself because I knew you were drowning and you wouldn't let anyone save you. If I'd stayed, we'd both have gone under. And Marcus with us? I know, I said quietly. Do you? Because for a long time, I think you told yourself I was the villain, that I was vindictive or cruel. But Trump, I just refused to drown with you. She was right. I'd spent months angry at Sarah for letting me fail. But she hadn't made me fail. She just refused to go down with the ship I was sinking. I'm sorry, I said. For everything. For not listening. For not seeing you. For taking you for granted for so long. Sarah studied my face. I think you mean that. I do. Then I accept your apology. She paused. And I'm sorry, too, for letting you believe everything was fine when I knew it wasn't. I should have fought harder to make you. Listen, I wouldn't have heard you, I admitted. I was too busy being Trump Harrison, real estate mogul, to listen to anyone, including yourself. Sarah said. We talked for a few more minutes. Real conversation. Not the hostile silence or awkward pleasantries we'd been trading for 2 years. And somewhere in that conversation, I realized something important. Sarah hadn't won. I hadn't lost. We'd both just survived the same disaster in different ways. She'd prepared. I hadn't. That was the only difference. Today, 3 years after the divorce, I'm 43 years old. I work in construction management, make a decent salary, live in a modest apartment, no empire, no luxury lifestyle, no trophy girlfriend or status symbols. I have dinner with Marcus 3 times a week. We talk about real things now. School, friends, life, mistakes. He's applying to colleges, using the trust fund Sarah built for him. The trust fund I would have spent on another bad investment if I'd known it. Existed. Sarah's interior design. Business is growing. She has a small office, 2 employees, and a steady stream of clients. She's building something real, something sustainable, something that won't collapse under the weight of its own ambition. We're not friends. Probably never will be. But we're civil, respectful. We co-parent our son effectively. And sometimes at school events or Marcus's activities, we even laugh about something together. The other day, Marcus asked me what I learned from all of this. From the empire and the collapse, and the bankruptcy and the restart. Thought about it carefully. I learned that looking successful and being successful are completely different things. I learned that the people who support you deserve credit and respect, not just a paycheck. I learned that growth without foundation is just a taller house of cards. Anything else? He asked. Yeah, I learned that sometimes the person trying to save you looks like they're holding you back. And sometimes the person you think is supporting you is just waiting for you to fall. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. Mom said something similar. She said sometimes saving yourself looks like giving up, but it's actually the bravest thing you can do. Smart woman, his mother. Always was. I don't tell this story to make you feel sorry for me. I made every mistake myself, took every risk, ignored every warning, built every bad decision into the foundation of a disaster waiting to happen. But I tell it because I think there's something important here, something worth understanding. Success isn't what you have. It's what you build. And you can't build anything real on lies, debt, and other people's unacknowledged labor. I wanted an empire. I got a bankruptcy. And in losing everything, I finally learned what actually matters. The trust of your son, the respect of your partners, the foundation of honest work and sustainable growth. Trump Harrison, former real estate mogul, current construction manager, learning to build things that last. I wouldn't wish this journey on anyone, but I also wouldn't trade it. Because the man I was 3 years ago, signing those papers in court, taking everything and knowing nothing, he was building toward disaster. The man I am now is building toward something real. Took me 40 years and a spectacular failure to learn the difference. Lesson learned. Sarah, lesson finally learned.